Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. On today's episode, I want to kind of cover some basics of a little bit of undertraining, overtraining. I find that a lot of people get frustrated with fitness because they want the answer. They want to be told, here's what I need to do. And it really doesn't work that way. There is a perfect way, but it's a perfect way for you in your time and space. And it's going to change for you over time and over your size and over your health and over the level you're at. It's continually changing, and that's the way it is. But there are basic principles that are going to hold true no matter what. And this is definitely one of the ways I was able to become a world-class powerlifter, because I took the principles and then went, okay, here's the principles. These are always going to work, but now I need to bend them and twist them to what I need at this particular time in this particular space. And I think that it's kind of human nature to live based on what we see. Like, we kind of tend to just react to the world around us. And when that changes, it's hard for us to kind of understand. So, for instance, when I tell people, yeah, I'm little, man, I'm down to like 305. And people are like, what? 305? You're huge. And I go, no, I'm not huge anymore. I used to be huge, yeah. Because I'm, 80 to 90 pounds lighter than I used to be. The world I surround myself with is big. So to me, anything smaller than that is little. Like, if you're under 300 pounds, you're just not that big. And the same thing with strength. I tend to look at strength in the terms of when I was surrounded with the best in the world. And I think sometimes we need to step back and see, like, clearly what is reality. There's this huge spectrum, and we need to see the better we can see the whole spectrum, the better we can understand things. So I realize that I tend to talk about overtraining a lot, but really that's because I'm focused on these guys that are at high levels. The vast majority of lifters, if I'm going to look at the numbers of all people lifting, the vast majority of them undertrain, way more than overtrain. And I've helped out with, like, I know Elite FTS has got some more learn to or train your ass off seminars coming up, which simply is a seminar based on, here, we're going to show you what intensity is. We're going to show you what 100% is. And so many people go in there thinking that they train hard, and they leave that seminar going, oh, okay, that's what hard is. Yeah, no, I've never pushed to that limit. And again, that's the spectrum. It's if you train with a bunch of people that think they train hard and they really don't train hard, you're probably going to think you're training hard when you're not. So coming down to that, there's undertraining and overtraining. And then there's that perfect balance in the middle. And I keep thinking about the beginning of the Conan movie, where they take all the slaves and they're pushing that big wheel around. And then people die off, and then they go and they keep going and keep cutting people. And eventually he's the only one pushing this whole huge, gigantic wheel by himself. And that's an interesting analogy because it kind of works that way and it kind of doesn't. Being a blue collar person, I can translate this back into blue collar type jobs. When you first start a construction job and you haven't done it before, man, the first couple weeks suck. Like, by the end of that first weekend, you're like, oh my God, like, I need this break. And then you come back Monday and you start again and you're a little sore. And after a few weeks, you're like, you can do it. You can get through it pretty good. After a year, it's no problem. You're going through it. But again, you're only going to build strength and endurance based on what the job is. You're not gonna go on the construction site and your forearms are just going to become like 24-inch forearms because you swing a hammer every day. They're going to get big enough and strong enough to swing the hammer as much as you need it. Then growth is going to stop. So the interesting thing about Conan is like when he's pushing it and you're like, okay, so he's getting bigger. He's working all day. That's cool. Okay, hey, someone died off. So now they have to push more. So now he's challenging his body more and he's basically stimulating growth. So now he's going to get a little bigger and he's going to get a little bigger as people die off. The part that I don't agree with is at the end. Like, and he's continuing to get bigger and he's the only one pushing this whole thing. Like, it doesn't necessarily work that way. Maybe he's half god, like was it Hercules? So maybe it worked that way for him. But it's a make-believe fucking story. So there's a point where in that scenario you're like, okay, this could kind of work. This is kind of how it works. He's going to keep stimulating more growth, and he's going to keep growing. But then you got to take in the factor of recovery. And that's where at the end, it's like, okay, he's doing the work of what would take, 20 normal people? And he's doing it by himself. Okay, well, how is he going to get enough nutrition to keep his body full of energy? How is he going to get enough recovery if he's doing this every day to recover from every day? Like, there's a point where there's a limit. And anybody who's ever had that time in their life where they're working physically hard, 10, 12 hours, 7 days a week, that there's a point where you just break down. Like, you can't keep doing that. And if it did work that way, I myself and a lot of other people that have lifted weights would lift weights 8 to 10 hours a day every single day because we love doing it. But it would just tear us up. There's no way you can eat enough and there's no way you can get enough sleep to keep that up. So the basic principles of that beginning, I actually kind of like. But then when you start looking deeper into it, it's like, okay, this doesn't function. And so if you look at the average gym goer, probably goes to the gym, say 3 to 5 days a week. They probably train for an hour and a half with a lot of bullshitting. And then you'll see those same people for years and years and years, and they don't get leaner, they don't get stronger. They just keep going through they do the same thing. And I don't necessarily have a problem with this. It's not for me. I don't have a problem with it if they understand or if they are doing it for their health. And in the terms of that, it's like, yeah, it's healthy that you're doing something active every day. And I look at that as if you take two people, if you take somebody who has a sedentary job and doesn't do any exercise, and you take somebody who has a physical job and doesn't do any exercise, the person with the physical job is more than likely going to be healthier. They're more than likely going to live longer. So a lot of these people that go to the gym have sedentary jobs. Now they're going to the gym to do this other stuff. And I think that's great because it is better for them. But as far as them making gains and changes and progressing, they're just not pushing it hard enough. They're kind of doing the bare minimum. They're going in there to move their bodies, to get some physical activity, to burn a few calories. And that's cool. That's good. But if you're coming to me and you want to be stronger or you want to be leaner or you want to be buffer, that's not going to cut it. Because all you're doing is the bare minimum. You're not you stimulated enough growth to be able to come and do that 3 to 5 days a week for an hour. That's all you did. So now your body has adapted to that and it's going to stay there. It's not going to go any more or any less. And I think another example that when you do that, like say take that person that has that sedentary job and then they go on vacation for a week. And on that vacation, they're on vacation, so they want to go do this stuff and they want to go walk around and they want to go explore all this stuff, go to the museum or the amusement park. and they come back and they're utterly exhausted because they're used to sitting on their butt at work doing hardly anything. Now they're actually active, and it kicked their butt for a week because they're not used to it. Our bodies adapt to what we do all the time. Now, this is one of the main concepts of health, fitness, weight loss, weight gain, strength gain. You have to stimulate the body to want to grow. And doing that means you're going to push it beyond what it's used to, where it goes, oh shit, this guy's going to expect me to do this. I need to get better. But if that stimulation ever stops, you're going to level out. This is a main concept of exercise. And this goes for anything. This even goes for like endurance sports. You know, if you want to be a road bike guy, you got to keep pushing it till you get to where you want to go, or you get to where you can handle the race that you want. But then if you want to get better and you want to decrease your time at that race, you're going to have to continually push your body to keep growing and keep adapting to the stimulation, which is more endurance-based than muscular-based. And this is why, like when you go into a boot camp or something, they're going to start you running hard, and then you're going to go more, and you're going to go more, and you're going to go more until they decide, yes, you can do that 20 miles with your pack, you're good. Excuse me. Now, you have to have that stimulation of growth. But you also have to consider the recovery from that session and the time for your body to actually grow. If you go do a heavy training session, the first thing your body wants to do is heal up from that session. It wants to replace all of the glycogen and everything that you used up. It wants to get you rested and recovered, and then it's going to actually make the modifications to your body. It's actually going to grow. And this is the part where I say when a lot of lifters are overtrained, they're training really heavy, they're training really hard, but they're not giving themselves time to grow. They're back in the gym before they actually recovered. And you can surprisingly keep this up for a long time. But you're going in there and working really hard and you're not seeing any gains. Now, this also, you have to factor in what really is recovery. Recovery is not just sleeping. Sleep is a huge part of it, but it's also your nutrition. It's also like your mobility work, your flexibility work, your GPP work. You know, if you're not in very good shape and your body can't recover well, but you lift really, really heavy, like you think you're in shape because you lift really, really heavy, but you're not really in shape, like you get winded walking to the mailbox, you're not in good shape, and that will slow your recovery rate down. So this is where I say there's principles to follow, but you have to bend and twist these principles to what you need. For someone like me who has narcolepsy and good sleep is I have not figured out yet, I'm going to have to adapt. Like, because I'm not going to be able to get optimum sleep. So how do I get around that? How did I still become this high-level power lifter? Well, I'm going to have to be in bed a lot longer than most people. I might have to try and add naps in. You know, I'm going to have to try to really be conscious of keeping my central nervous system relaxed and in a parasympathetic state than a sympathetic state. I'm really going to have to control how I react to the external world. Basically meaning I'm not going to react to the external world. I'm going to react from within myself. And there's a lot of different things with that. But the basic principle I want to talk about here is if you don't stimulate the growth, you're not going to get bigger. And like I said, I used the carpenter a lot in the old days when they swung a hammer all day. Yeah, they had strong ass hands and strong ass forearms, but they didn't continue to grow. They grew to one point where they could handle what the stimulation was, and then they stop. So you have to keep pushing that limit in order to keep growing. Now, there's multiple ways to do this. If you're a bodybuilder, you're not really concerned with overall strength. You're concerned with size. So I've seen some huge guys. I'm talking like 24-inch arms, and their best bench is like 315. Which I'm like, how did you get so big and you're not like strong as hell? And now I've seen some bodybuilders that are strong as hell that could be powerlifters if they wanted to. And I've seen powerlifters that aren't that big but are strong as hell. So like there's a little difference in everybody, but if you're focusing on size, you don't necessarily need to stimulate the muscle with weight. Or let me say, I should say the weight isn't important. Like there's bodybuilders that can change the angle of the movement, change the tempo of the movement. There's a lot of different things that you can make a lighter weight really, really hard to stimulate that muscle to grow. If you're talking about a power lifter, we want to stimulate it to get stronger. So we are going to be lifting heavy a lot. We are going to be pushing the limits. And and we can break that down to another factor. There's a lot of guys that feel like you only need to go to somewhere between 85 to 95% to stimulate that growth. I'm one of those guys that likes to push super heavy and even overload the muscles. And that's how I stimulated most of my growth. Now that took more time for me to recover from than the other people. So then you start trying to calculate, is it better for me to go not quite as heavy, but I can train more often? Is it better for me to go super heavy, but I can't train as often? And then how much do you personally recover from sessions? That's where the difference is. And this even goes back to the beginning of Conan now, which is another point that I do agree with, is everybody's different. Everybody has different genetics. We all have some sort of genetic advantage in some way, but in other ways it may not be an advantage to us. So Conan could have been the guy that recovers insanely fast. He could have been the guy that stimulates growth really, really easy. So where some of the guys fall off in the very beginning, maybe it's that they're really slow recoverers, and even that one daily work they couldn't recover, and eventually it's going to beat them down till they die. And then some of the guys were able to last a little longer, and then Conan was able to last the longest. That simply could have been, if you were to take a group of guys and actually do that, I imagine it would be really similar to that. The guys that don't have the genetic ability for it, the guys that don't have the mentality to push past the pain, are going to fall off way faster than the guys that do. So there's always that genetic difference. I don't want to say advantage, because what's the advantage? I mean, I know guys that have great genetics athletically, but they're just not mentally tough. And I know guys that are mentally tough without the genetic advantage who have beat the snot, like myself, out of guys that have the genetic advantage. I used my mind and my mental toughness to get past some of the advantages I didn't have with like athleticism and recovery and those things. So again, you're taking all these different factors and you're trying to get down to the basics. What are the basics principles that I can use and then fit in all the advantages that I have, realize the disadvantages that I have, and make it work based on the principles that I know are solid across the board. And in this video, those principles that I'm talking about is you have to stimulate growth. You have to recover from that training. Then you have to give your body time to actually grow. For some people, that's going to happen fast. For some people, it's going to take longer. And part of this video is trying to get people to realize that you're different. Don't follow somebody just because you like them. Don't follow somebody because they look good to you and you want to look like them. Like, find people that are more similar to you. And really, in the end, I say follow your own rules. You know, if you go, hey, I want to be a top bodybuilder, it's cool to look at top bodybuilders. What are they doing? What do you need to look like? What's going to get you on that stage? But at some point, you got to get down to, what do you need? Don't listen to what they're doing. You got to figure out what you need to get there. I have friends in powerlifting that I will not train like they train. I'm impressed by them. I think they're knowledgeable. I think they're smart. I can't recover like they can recover. So if I did their training, I'm not going to make gains. And that's just the fact of the matter. I see a lot of lifters try to do what other people do because they're like, oh, that's cool. I like that guy. Well, you're not that guy. So why are you trying to train like that guy? You need to figure out what works for you. Now, I will say, look at those guys. What are their principles? What are the rules that they're following? You know, listen to their advice and take it, but then tweak it to what you need. And this is how I became successful, was by going, wait a minute, I like this program. I like what they're saying. This makes sense to me. But okay, now how do I tweak it to what I need to give myself the best results that I can get? And again, one of the biggest things I see is guys and women do not understand the stimulation of growth. Some people can stimulate easier, but everybody's got to push past the limit. Whatever your, and jobs are just such a great way to describe this. Whatever your job is, and if you've done different jobs, you know, even if you go in and do something new, there's the first couple of weeks where you're like, damn, this is kind of hard. And then after a while, you're like, oh man, this isn't bad. Like, I'm getting in shape. Well, you get in shape to do that job. And then your limit, your progress stops. Because now you're used to going to that job. You're used to doing it. It's no longer stimulating growth. So you can't say, oh, I'm going to go in a gym and I'm going to lift this weight for this many reps. And then I'm just going to keep doing that forever and just keep getting bigger. That's not the way it works. You have to go in. You have to continue to push yourself, which means you need to lift more weight. You need to do more reps. And I don't mean do more reps and like, hey, I'm going to add 2 reps every day for the next 10 years. I mean, in most cases, if you're trying to put on muscle, you're going to be like, hey, I can do this weight for 8 reps. When I can do this weight for 12 reps, I'm going to add weight and drop down to 8 reps again. Then I'm going to keep building up. So you're building your reps gradually, dropping them down. You're building your weight gradually. And you're just trying to keep making progress. You're trying to keep pushing yourself. And even to the point of there's different ways through, say, tempo lifting, through the particular lifts that you do, to make it harder without adding weight, which is another option too. But you need to come in and push harder. It's kind of like if I go, I want to run a marathon of 26 miles or however the hell crazy ass long it is. If I get myself to where I can run 5 miles and then I go, okay, I'm just going to keep running 5 miles for the same exact time every day, and then I'm going to go enter a marathon. You're probably going to run your 5 miles and get a little bit more, but peter out because you didn't really push yourself to where you can run 26 miles. Like, you're going to have to hit that 5 mile mark and go, all right, I'm doing that pretty consistently. Now we need to up it a little bit, and we need to up it a little bit. And the hard part with that kind of distance training and with Ironman is trying to fit in the recovery with the amount of time it actually takes to run those things, which again is a balancing act. And a lot of people, even with weight training, a lot of people have this in their head that I need to go to the gym, I need to lift weights, I need to be into this long, but they're not calculating anything else outside of that. So this whole thing between undertraining and overtraining is a balancing act. And I've always seen it like a peak. It's like the peak of a mountain. And at the very top, the very ridge of that mountain, that's perfection. That's perfect balance. That's where you want to be. But you know what? Either side of that slope, it's you could slide off really fast. And before you know it, you can get pretty far into it. Like you can spend a little bit of time overtraining and be okay if you pull back. If you stay there for a long time, that you're going to get deeper and deeper down the slope, and it's going to take longer and longer to actually recover from that. And if you start undertraining, again, you can be undertrained a little bit, and I think that's actually fine. It's probably, I would rather be a little undertrained than overtrained. But again, it's a steep slope. Once you start pulling away, then it's like, okay, now you're rapidly losing the strength or the muscle that you put on. And by rapid, I mean in long terms, I should say. Like, to me, you're not going to lose a whole lot in a month. But if you're consistently not doing shit for a month, yeah, you're going to lose it. You know, it's not going to happen. You're not like, oh, I missed a session, I'm going to be 5 pounds lighter tomorrow. It's not like that. You're not going to lose 5 or 10 pounds on your bench if you miss a week of training. But if you're doing it consistently, if you're missing consistently, or you're not pushing consistently, it's going to start fading off, and within months, you're going to be like, holy shit, I lost a lot. So that's where consistency also comes into play. And again, it's this balance of too much, not enough, and trying to hit that as close as you can to being perfect. But what I find is most people do not train anywhere near hard enough. Examples of that would basically be when I coach at seminars, I often have people come up to me afterwards and they're like, Chad, we didn't lift that heavy, but I'm exhausted. Like, I'm literally exhausted from this day. I haven't been this tired and I don't even remember when. And the reason is because they have me forcing them into perfect technique and yelling at them to stay tighter, to flex their muscles, to root their feet, to get their brace in. And they had just been going through the motions of lifting. They hadn't been lifting with intent. They hadn't been asking or trying to pull so much out of their bodies. And then I'll have some of my online clients. Eventually I want them all to come to my gym so we can get some training in. And I'd like to have them train with some of my clients that I train in person, because I want them to see what putting that effort into a lift is. I want them to see how hard those people are working, how much intent they have, how much focus they have. A lot of people do what I call going through the motions. They go to the gym and they lift weights. They go, oh, a curl means I'm bending at the elbows. But they're not thinking about staying tight. They're not thinking about the mind-muscle connection. They're not thinking about putting true effort into the lift. And I've only got to help at a couple, maybe even one. Was it one or two? I can't remember. The Train Your Ass Off seminars. And it was a blast, an absolute blast. I loved it because I love training with super high intensity. And to be able to push people past what they think they can do, and just to see the look on their face while they're going through it, and to see the look on their face when they make it through it. And I mean, I've seen so many people that are actually decent lifters, and they come away from that going, wow, I've never pushed myself like that. That was incredible. And then at least they know that teaches them, dude, here's 100%. This is literally 100%. So even if you want to train at 95%, you were training at 80%. And now you at least know what 100 is to better know what 95 is. I did this myself when I was a kid. My best example is when I would squat. I would squat in the basement, and if I could walk up the stairs, in my brain I would go, no, you have more, you're not done yet. And then my squat session would last until I couldn't physically get up the stairs. And I would have to sit on the stairs till I recovered enough to get back upstairs. And I did that with my bench pressing. I did it with curls. I did it with just about everything. And I think that taught me a good base. That taught me what is stimulation. How far do I need to go? Now, at a certain point when I gained so much strength, that's when I started overtraining pretty bad. And it took me a while to figure that out and learn that there's too far. There is a balance. There's a balance with everything in this universe. And I think what happens is people try to say either you're in balance or you're not. And that's not the case. It's not about being in balance or not being balanced. It's about where is the balance. You need to maintain a balance. It might not be an equal balance, but you need to maintain a balance. If you want to be the best in the world at something, you can't have equal balance. And who the hell ever has equal balance in their life anyway? Like, equal balance is impossible. It's not important to keep equal balance. It's important to keep a balance that is within the limits to help you reach your goal. Because I would say if all you wanted to do was go 100% at one thing, but everything else in your life crashes, that's eventually going to affect you trying to get that goal. So having no balance is no good ever for anybody. This is a great argument that I have with a lot of people. So it's important for people to understand that there's undertraining and there's overtraining. You want to hit in that sweet zone to where you're stimulating the growth in your training, whatever your training is. And then outside of that training, you're still, outside of the training, the physical training, you're still training. Okay? Because now that you stimulated growth, you want to recover from the session and let your body grow. But you don't just want to be like willy-nilly, like, oh yeah, I'm recovering, whatever. Like, you want to train that recovery just as hard as you train the physical training in the gym or on the court or on the field. It's not like, oh, I'm going to kind of eat and I'm going to kind of sleep. No, you figure out the nutrition that you need. You figure out the nutrition that's going to give you the optimum recovery and optimum growth. And then you make that happen. And odds are it's going to be eating more than you normally eat or more than you want to eat. It's going to be eating way healthier foods than you normally eat. Then you also need to go, hey, my muscles just got pushed. They're tight. They could be knotting up. I need to do some mobility and flexibility to work to help them recover faster. That stuff's not that much fun, quite honestly. It feels good, but it's not that much fun. But it's just as important as the training in the gym. So you need to do that work. And now you need to stay in shape to help your recovery work well. That means doing general physical preparedness or GPP work. Even if that's regular walks during the day, even if that's the 10-minute walks after meals. I'm a BMX bike guy. I like riding my BMX bike. That's what I do. Or that's one of my main ones. It could be sled dragging. It could be going back into the gym and doing really, really light timed work. But all this is going to help speed the recovery, and it's going to keep you in better shape so your body functions better and it can recover better. Then there's the sleep. Most people do not get anywhere near enough sleep, especially if they're training hard. It's really easy to go, oh, I'm busy. It's really easy to go, but I want to finish this show. Oh, I'm catching up on my social media. No, you need that sleep. You need to get that sleep, and you need to look at sleep as being absolutely as important as training. Now, if you get all that recovery, you train it hard and you get it pinned down and you're nailing it, that's probably going to allow you to actually train more often. And if you can do this whole system of training, recovery, the modalities, nutrition, sleep, you're going to be able to run this whole thing much faster. You're going to be in the gym training more often. This is going to mean you're going to get to your goal much faster. But what you can't do is you can't go, oh, I want to train harder because I want to get my goal faster. But then you don't pay attention to making your recovery better. This is when you start hitting those overtraining phases. You can't just go, well, I'm going to train 7 days a week, but you're recovering like shit. Like, there has to be the balance between the training and the recovery. And if you're under training in the gym, if you're not pushing and stimulating growth, that's the number one thing. If you're not pushing your body enough to stimulate growth, it doesn't matter. It's not going to grow. Like, you have to push to at least like 85%. And then when you hit 85% and you're good at it, your 85% is going to grow. You're going to need to go more. At some point, you're going to need to pick up and lift more. Going to the gym and just going through the motions, you're not going to see great results. Which brings me to another point now we're going to add in. What you think is difficult, what you think is hard, isn't necessarily true. I believe in my last podcast I talked about, I had a client who thought, he said he's busting his ass and he doesn't know why he's not seeing results. And I'm like, well, what exactly do you think is busting your ass? Because what you're saying is, like, to me, you're not even doing part of what you need to do. Or that's all you're doing is a small part of what you need to do. Like, what is busting your ass? And that goes back to the learn to train. A lot of people think they train really hard and they have no idea what training hard is, because all they've ever done is looked around them at the gym. And if I go to any commercial gym, at least in this city and probably any city in the United States, I'm going to walk in there and go, yeah, 0% of these people actually train hard. I might see one or two every now and then. Like, these people aren't stimulating growth. They're going through the motions. They're not training, they're working out. And if you don't stimulate growth, how are you going to see results? So, balance. You have to do this whole thing, and you have to get it balanced enough that you're seeing the results. Then you can decide, hey, can I train a little more? Do I still need more time for recovery? And you start learning this stuff. And this isn't a coach. Having a coach is a great thing, but a coach is a guide. The coach isn't there to tell you exactly what to do and have you do it. And that's going to be a whole nother podcast. So I don't want to get too deep into it, but you need to learn to listen to your body. You need to learn to read your body. Then you can relay to your coach, and your coach can better guide you what to do next. But don't just try to rely on your coach. Tell me what to do. That's not a good way to look at this, and that's not a good way for success. You need to learn yourself. And then you have that expert to guide you through it. Because no matter how good a coach he is, he's going to be able to see some things, but he's never going to be able to read your body like you read your body. It's your body. So basically, my whole point here, and I'm going to wrap this up, is you need to stimulate growth. That's the very first place you start. And if you think you're pushing yourself hard, maybe try to find some people that are successful and see how hard they push themselves. And that still doesn't mean that you need to push to exactly where they're at, but at least it will start giving you some sort of baseline of, wait a minute, what is pushing hard? You know, don't go to your gym and look around and go, well, none of these people are actually built like I want to be built. So why am I basing how hard I'm pushing myself off them? Or even if you see a guy, you're like, oh, that guy or that girl's built pretty good. I want to be built like them. How hard are they working? Do you have the same genetics they have? You know, can you stimulate growth as easy as they can? These are things that you don't know. So in the end, you're going to have to look at yourself and you're going to have to figure this out. And one of the first places I would start is, am I training with enough intensity to stimulate growth? For the average person, I would say you need to do more. You need more intent. You need more focus. You need more intensity. You need to push yourself harder. That's where I would start. Because if I'm looking at lifters on the whole, the vast majority of people undertrain. And that whole undertraining starts with you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Like, I don't think you can be undertrained because you're over recovering. Like, I just don't think it works that way. You're just not pushing yourself hard enough, often enough. I mean, if you're going to the gym once a week and you're not even pushing yourself that hard, you're way off, man. You need to kick up your intensity. You need to kick up your frequency, your duration. Like, you need to kick everything up. I mean, the average person, I would say start with at least 4 days a week, maybe 5. Then start kicking your intensity up and start looking at it from there. Start going from there. But if you never change, if you're just going to go in and go through the motions, you're never going to stimulate growth. You're never going to get to that point where you're adding in muscle, where you're putting on strength. You need to push yourself. And very quickly, let me go over this too. The odds of overtraining as a new lifter or as someone who's never really pushed themselves, the odds of overtraining are pretty rare. The people that actually do hit overtraining or are the somewhat psychotic people, such as myself. The people that have like crazy mentally tough, where they can just keep pushing and just go through these crazy sessions. But even at that, when I was younger and I was first lifting, I don't think I overtrained because, or at least not bad, I didn't have the ability. Like, if you're new to lifting, you probably don't have the ability. You don't have the muscle control. You don't have the technique. You don't understand rooting or bracing. You don't have the ability to push your central nervous system that far. You don't have the ability to push your muscles that far. So you can train super, super hard, and you're going to feel like you're training hard, but you're not really training hard. And that's going to come, but you need to push like that. You need to push hard. And that's where you're going to learn the muscle control. You're going to learn to tap into your central nervous system. Then as you actually start getting stronger, as you start getting that muscle control, as you start getting that mind-muscle connection, this and you're making gains, this is where you actually need to start thinking really seriously about, okay, am I overtraining now? Do I need to really start pushing my recovery? Do I need to make sure that it's right on? Like, if you're like in powerlifting, if you're like a mid-level lifter, that's when you should probably start thinking about, do I really need to, I could possibly be overtraining. So let me maximize all my recovery work and let me maximize what's happening outside the gym and see if I start getting better. And if I do, then, hey, maybe I possibly was tapping into overtraining. So let's optimize that and keep looking at this. But if you're new to lifting, odds are like there's probably a better chance of you winning the lottery than being overtrained. If you're new to powerlifting, or you're like, you haven't even hit that like middle point, like you're not even ranked mid-level, you're probably not overtrained. Like, when you start looking at hitting like the top 100, or depending on how many people are in your weight class, the top, I would say the top 50 to 25, you need to consider overtraining. You need to start thinking about this stuff. If you're under that, you need to start thinking, how can I pick it up? How can I push myself further? How can I really test my body and challenge myself? All right, guys, this is something, and gals, this is something I want you to think about. Just consider it. And even if you are newer to lifting, or you're a low-level power lifter, just keep it in mind and start considering it and start thinking, hey, if I can optimize my recovery, but I'm still not overtrained, then maybe I could train a little more frequently, which is going to get me to my goals faster. And then keep in mind that there's going to be a point where you have such good muscle control and you have such good technique and you have such good mind-muscle connection that you really need to start considering where am I at? Am I overtrained now? Do I need to back off and give myself more recovery? Because I don't get stronger in the gym. I stimulate growth in the gym. I get stronger once I've recovered and I'm allowing my body to grow. That is probably the best wrap up of this whole thing. Remember that. Remember, strength doesn't come in the gym. Stimulation of growth comes in the gym. That means a lot of intensity. The growth comes after you've let your body recover. Then you grow and you get stronger. All these things are tied together. Don't think you're getting stronger in the gym, because you're not. If that was true, at the end of your training session, you would be stronger than the beginning of it. You get stronger outside the gym. As you grow, as you get stronger, as you get better, as you can push your body more, you're going to need more recovery, because your muscles will grow. Your bones can get denser. Your tendons and ligaments can get thicker. But you know what happens to your central nervous system and your organs? They all pretty much stay the same. So now everything that's trying to recover your muscles has pretty much stayed the same, but everything else has grown. So the stronger you get, the bigger you get, the more recovery you're going to need. And that's, once you start hitting those phases, that's where overtraining starts becoming a factor. I'm out of here. Check out Chad Ikes on Instagram. Check out CourageBarbell.com. And I will talk to you guys later. But for now, I'm out of here.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit CourageBarbell.com. Until next time.
Recording stopped.